Hey, Nix.
Hey, Scott.
We are talking about pods, not to be confused with beanbag chairs or podcasts
Or earpods.
or AirPods. Oh, man, there's a lot of pods. We could talk about that all day. So, pods, firm structure, Sons of CPAs bonus episode where Nix and Scott share a small but useful piece of practical advice as it relates to running their professional accounting firms using words that start with the letter P.
Do you have that memorized by
Now,
now?
I should, but I always read off of it. So I got some feedback yesterday that I need to start introducing us more, but honestly, recurring co-host Nikole Mackenzie of Momentum Accounting, representing the West Coast.
Yeah, no, I
We
think
got
when you have new people on here, it makes sense, but nobody cares of
yeah.
who I am. Let's be real.
Well, it's not that they don't care. It's that I honestly like the bonus episodes are deep dives into topics, and I think they serve the purpose well because it's a different than our regular episodes. The regular episodes, sure, we do talk about the guest, and that's mainly the focus. You've had your regular episode, so they can go back and refer to that one, right?
There you go.
I should probably post a link in the show notes to your episode. It'll be like a circle link. So today's topic starts with the P. We are talking about pods. This pod is team structure. Lead us into it because this
Yeah,
is
so we were in Santa Barbara a couple weeks ago with a bunch of other accountants, and the topic came up of pods, and I had never really heard the word pods until recently, but I realized that we do use pods in our firm. So pods is really just talking about how you structure your team in terms of how you deliver your services to your clients. So for a firm that offers bookkeeping services and tax services and payroll, you might have 3 people on a team servicing the client, and all of those people serve multiple clients. So you may have one person at your firm that just does all the payroll for all your clients. You may have a bookkeeper that has a portfolio of bookkeeping clients and then a controller that reviews all of those clients. And then you might have a CFO that has another portfolio of clients, right? So within your firm, you have different teams working together. And some people said that they had, well, I think only one person said that their pods always worked together, like they never work with other people. And then most people said that this was the same structure, but could be different team members across the pods.
yeah. And in my mind, I thought, okay, a pod is an isolation. They work with their own clients, and in a perfect world, the pods work with similar clients that do similar things that are on similar platforms, right? But that would be difficult because then the teams would have to be uniform and the same size across the board, or you basically have to backfill them with clients and then they're capped, or they lose a client, you put one in, and it's just not as easy to mix and match and move people around.
Yes, it's an interesting concept. I think you'd have to have a pretty big firm in order to do that. I could see that being effective with a larger firm, but I think for a smaller firm where you have a lot of people wearing a lot of different hats, it would be a little bit harder to manage that capacity wise. We're replacing, at least what we do, outsource accounting, right? We're replacing an in-house team member, and the advantage of that is you get this team of experts that come in and everyone's good at one specific thing, right? Versus having one team member that may not be good, maybe really good at bookkeeping, but may not be very good at forecasting or doing deeper data analysis, or someone that doesn't know how to do payroll, right? So
Being very intentional with how you're structuring the firm, how you're structuring your team, and their interaction with clients. And I think you can get the most out of people if they're focused. And I'm saying that, but I'm thinking in my mind, our team still we do have a pod like structure, but they do a lot. They do accounting and they do taxes, and sometimes they mess around with payroll. And we try to separate those things, but honestly, it's at this point would be very difficult for us to separate it out. But I think that that's probably hurting our margins. I think that our team's getting less done because the context shifting.
Well, I'm curious. So you have the same people doing taxes and also doing the accounting?
Pretty much.
So
Yeah.
how do they manage that? So they're either really, really, really busy during tax season or not busy enough during the rest of the year, right?
We've really pared down our, tax services. Like, we went to the last round of raising everybody's individual prices, so we don't have many. We have a handful of individual only returns left and a handful of tax only clients. Almost all of our clients, they're basically, and their justification of it, the team is justifying this, and this is what they want, is they work with the clients year round, so they know the most about their taxes, and they're doing the tax planning throughout the year as they're reviewing the accounting. Now, the team structure is, we have an outsourced team that's doing a lot of the basic bookkeeping. We have staff accountants that are doing a lot of the connections and just keeping things, basically they're the liaisons of the outsourced team, and our account managers is what we call it. And the account managers are the ones that are doing the higher level, that are client facing, that are doing the taxes, but also reviewing the financials. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense because right now January is really busy for us because we prepare this big Excel workbook that we give to the tax accountants to prepare everything for them so they can just plug it in the tax return. So I suppose if we did taxes, we would just do it in the tax return, right? So we are doing a lot of the pre-tax work.
you are basically doing a
We're
tax
doing the
return. All
return.
you need is the
We're too
tax
nice to the
software.
tax accountants.
You're too nice to them.
um,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of tax accounts are used to dealing with all the adjusting entries and closing the books and everything else. You're basically doing what we do minus the tax return. And I think that for especially for a remote and hybrid team, you really have to be intentional about who everybody's assigned to, because it's just not as easy to manage. You're not seeing them every day. So how you structure your team and how you structure their interaction with clients is pretty important. And using this, and the first person that told me about pods was Josh Lance. He's doing it the same way today as he was years ago when he introduced me to the idea. I thought it was very revolutionary, and that was when we decided we're going to have layers of people associated with clients, and we're not going to have just one person. Our margins were very high when it was one person, but it was
mm,
crazy because you're relying on one person for everything for that client. If that person leaves, you got nothing. You got no layers and no low layer of review either. Like, it was always a bottleneck of who's reviewing everything.
just to allow people to be able to go on vacation because if
Yeah.
one person's managing everything, they're never going to be able to check out completely. So it's in the team's best interest to work with each other and delegate. So what we do when we onboard a new client, we have a little short PowerPoint presentation we do, and it
Oh, cool.
on one page is it's the team members and it breaks out what their roles are. So it's Ashley who's just gets involved if there's sales or anything from a project management perspective. And then there'll be two people on their account. And we identify, so this person's your main point of contact. This is the person you're going to communicate with daily. But this other person is here if you need CFO services or going to be doing the review. So they typically are working with both of those people because they email our one central inbox, but it just gives them that peace of mind that they're not like, who do I contact if I need help. That they do have one person, but there's a whole team of people supporting them.
Yeah, there's a lot of clarity on expectations and who they go to. That's always an issue, or it used to be at least. I feel like we've solved these things, or they just don't bring them to my attention. But the clients aren't asking me anything. Like,
Yeah.
I that's great, a good feeling. I would think that ours is pretty clear too. We just don't have a PowerPoint. That's another P word. We got two P words, right? PowerPoint.
Yeah, and even behind those, right, those 2 team members is other people on the team. If there's something where like Ashley Stafford's really good at written communication. So if it's something that's like that needs to be explained in a really long email, Ashley will jump in and queue up the email in HubSpot for somebody else on the team so they can just take that and send it so their day doesn't get disrupted spending an hour writing an email and spinning their wheels. And then if it's something that needs if it's like a tax question or something, I can jump in and queue up an email for the team to send out. So behind their point of contact is this whole team of people assisting.
Yeah, but that gives you a lot of security and a sense of
Pride. No.
pride. Yeah, right. That you created something, and there's pride's a whole nother word. We can have a whole day on that. That's
Yeah,
I've
we
been
should
toying
come to
with a lot
San
of different.
Francisco for that during the Pride Parade.
There you go. But it gives you a sense of clarity too and presence. But
Well, there's
it's
a lot more
yeah,
transparency as a team. I mean, we're a small team, right? So we tend to know what's going on with every client all the time, and as we
sure.
grow, that's going to change. But there is that sense of security, knowing that if somebody leaves, or someone needs to go on vacation, or somebody goes on maternity leave, that there's other people that have context with that client.
So pods can also be variable or they can expand. If you want to add another layer of service, we've got some great episodes coming up of pretty large firms that are doing this successfully. $10 million firms that have pod structure that are very successful at it, and they're adding different things. So we've talked about this before in our episodes: data analysts and different people that you can add to a pod structure to enhance it and to make it stronger and to make the client relationship stronger and also increase profitability. Like if you're automating everything and you're digging deep and tinkering with all of the processes that the team is doing within that pod, it might be client specific, it might be bespoke, but it's going to save you a ton of time long term and gain a ton of efficiencies and effectiveness, and the team will actually be able to handle more clients within that pod.
Yeah, I think of it as the POC, as we call it, the point of contact, is their job to just identify what the client needs and then find the resource that can solve that problem. So, in your example with the data analysts, if the person sending out the invoices on our team is spending a ton of time manipulating data, they can go to Michael on our team to be like, hey, can you help us automate this process? But it's up to them to identify that and then bring in other resources. One thing that words that I want to do eventually is break out our payroll. So we just started getting more and more into payroll this year, and it's just been hell. Payroll sucks, but it's something I know that we can't really get away from. So we brought in a compliance contractor to help us with all just the compliance crap, and then eventually I'd love to just be like one person's gonna just do all the payroll, and then the accounting team doesn't have to deal
And they
with it.
hop from pod to pod
But
doing payroll
they
related
might be the
things.
relationship manager, but someone else is actually running payroll for them. Someone
Right.
else is preparing the books for them. Someone else is, so that's
Yeah.
the big vision, but
Well, what I'm at least finding out is pods aren't very revolutionary. It's just a different way. It's an evolution of structuring, right? Like
it's like
I,
it's like people advisory. It's a new
yeah,
name for an old thing.
it's a new name for an old thing. But when Josh introduced it, I was and I was floored. Like, wow, this is great. And then, that as the years go by, it's like, okay, that makes sense. This is what we're doing, and this is kind of how you want to structure these relationships. And this is how bigger firms have always been doing it, but they just never called it that, right? With older firms, it's partners at the top of that pod, and each partner is in a silo or a pod of their own clients. That's the pods in a large,
You're
a
right,
firm
yeah.
structure.
The partner had
So
their own book of business.
right. And a lot of us are running our firms like corporations or like businesses, and the CEO is not in any pod, right? They're just running the entire firm. And then you
Podmaster.
have pod masters. We're the puppet masters, right? Got all the pods on the string. And you
Puppets,
want to
there's our next
change one
episode.
thing across the board, you talk to your leads and then they distribute, and it's very decentralized. Well, that's not decentralized. The way I was describing it is not decentralized. I think on the ground level, like with us, we have the staff accountants that work with different pods, but within that client, they have their unique. And the layers of the pods kind of depend on what your service offerings are, but I think generally speaking, what I'm seeing across the board is everybody has some form of base level of bookkeeping that's either outsourced or they're part of their team, the lowest staff. The next level up is going to be some form of client manager or accountant that is looking at that at a higher level. The next phase there is going to be the finance function, and the other side of that is the forward facing person. So everybody below them is sort of backwards facing. You're going to probably have your tax seniors or tax advisors in there too, but at the top, that's where the profitability is, and that's where they make most of their money, is the finance and the forecasting and that type of CFO.
I think if you do it well, you can. I would say the bookkeeping can be pretty profitable, but I see it as like a whole package deal where you have payroll, bookkeeping, accounting controller, right? And then CFO services. If it takes the accountant longer to enter the data into the accounting system in such a way, like for example, tagging certain expenses so that the CFO can do their job quicker, I'm okay with that. So I'm just looking at it as overall how efficient can we be in delivering the entire packages of services and how can we work together? I think there's a lot of firms that just want to add on or just want to do like controller CFO because they think that the bookkeeping part's super low margin. But in order for the CFO or controller to be efficient, the bookkeeping has to be done in such a way. So I like this whole entire system that we're all working together.
Yeah. There's no silver bullet. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. There's just your way and the way that works best for you. Right. I have become very diplomatic about my ways. I don't really have any standards because I flip flop. I don't have any
You are a
consistency.
flipper flopper. I love it
I'm
though. But you
flipper.
like
Yeah.
you're very open-minded. You're very open-minded. That's some might see you're probably not gonna be a good politician, but I would say you are open-minded.
It's definitely not a politician because I question everything, and I have a lab coat now. I bought a lab
Where
coat
is it?
just to match my. It's all wrinkled up. It's like I came in Amazon. I wear it sometimes, maybe for these videos. I question a lot of things, and it's like a scientific approach. And this is one topic that we had during Ron Baker's episode was you question your reality to ensure it's the right way because there's always new ways and there's always evolutions of what you're doing. So I take that approach with the firm, I take that approach with the podcast, take that approach with life, question everything, and don't take things for granted.
Do what works for you. If it's working, it's working. I have heard of some bigger firms that literally break out everything. Like one person just goes and pays all the bills, goes on to bill.com and pays all the bills for all the clients. Somebody else goes in and sends out all the invoices. And then someone does the bookkeeping and then someone does the
Mm.
review. And then I'm like,
How
that seems like a
scalable is
lot
that? Yeah.
that
Because
I mean,
each
I don't
person's gonna get overflowed, right? Like, each person's gonna hit capacity or they screw something up across I don't know, or they go
I
on
think that
vacation, like,
that
yeah.
could cause the client to get pissed off because there's not when you go to your main point of contact, you want them to know your books and know your business, and if you have someone doing every single little piece of it, I do I think it would be more efficient, but would it be effective and would you be creating value for your client? I don't know. Haven't tried it. It's an interesting thought
That's a
though.
that's a Ron Baker statement, right? The efficient versus effective. What's the most effective? Because efficiency is the enemy of effectiveness sometimes too.
Yeah, I was listening to his interview with Blake Oliver today on the timesheets, and I'm really trying to get behind the no timesheets thing. I think they addressed some pushback to it. I don't think they addressed the solution to
Oh
not
god,
having
we talked
timesheet.
about it for fucking
Yeah.
hour on mine. I tried to get us off that topic and it kept
Yeah,
going back
we won't
to
need
it.
to go into that, but one thing that I feel like accountants don't know how to do well, or at least I haven't figured it out yet, and we're still in the process, is project management and being able to forecast everything and have a really good system for keeping people accountable for what work they have coming up. I think the more people I talk to, everyone has half built out systems. It's one thing to say don't track time, but you have to provide a solution to that, and I'm not really seeing that in terms of capacity management, right? Of knowing when people are at capacity, of knowing what people have, what people are doing.
Yeah.
Timesheets are just so that's all I'm going to say about timesheets, and then we're going to stop talking about
Oh, well, I could go on for days about it because I feel like I've been talking about it for the past year already because I questioned it. Like I did never like at the beginning of this podcast didn't track time, and I was definitely with Ackerman as far as we were on the same page. And then somewhat halfway through the year, I flip flopped, and we are tracking time, but we're doing it for capacity planning. It's for profitability's sake, and it's to see, yeah, profitability per client too. There's a lot of data that we have now because of the time that we didn't have before.
it. Yeah, my goal is to not track time. I want to flip the other way, but I don't think we're there yet. I
Ah,
think you have to
yeah,
have You have
You
to know
gotta have a
you
baseline.
know you have to know your services, you have to know your pricing, and you have to be able to manage it. And we have 2 new service lines we've rolled out recently, and I'm still trying to figure that out. Accounting, I feel like I don't even need it. But on the other service lines we're rolling out, we're still experimenting with what that includes. How much time does it take? How much value can we actually create? We're not creating value on our CFO service line right now because it's new, right? We're figuring that out.
Yeah.
In a year, we'll be crushing it, but um I think it
Well,
depends
this
on
is
where you're
good.
at.
You're in your experimentation phase, and at that phase, you need as much data as you can. Collect all the data, and then you could decide later which data pieces you need as you start to mature in
Yep.
that process.
Yep.
And that goes with anything else. Like you're planning. I aspire to not track time at some point too, but right now, we need it. It's essential to our data set. And I'll be honest, every pod guest we've had, pod is in the other podcast. Every guest we've had tracks time except for Ackerman
Ackerman.
and the one that we just had on Monday, Shane Mason. He said they don't track time,
Mm.
which is
What kind of
very interesting. Their
okay, Shane
tax
Mason.
firm, they BrooklynFI, they do taxes, they do
Oh, I've
wealth
heard of them.
management and
They do wealth
finance. Yeah.
management, that's right.
Ackerman said, "I love you" at the end to him. Ackerman was just in love by the end of the episode. He loves his beautiful hair and everything else. That made me laugh. I was like laughing as I was going to sleep, just thinking about the Ackerman's never reacted this way to a guest before. He was so happy. And he was going to leave early too. He had to go back to the hospital, and he stayed on for an extra 20 or 30 minutes because he
He
was just
missed his
loving
child's
that
birth
episode.
because he
He
was
missed his
so in
child's birth
love.
just with Shane Mason. Oh, that was the
I'll have to
best.
check
I
this guy
loved
out.
it.
Is he cute? What?
Yeah, it was a good episode. It was one of my favorites. He was gonna hang with us in Santa Barbara, but he never made it because he didn't have anybody to watch his dog or something like that. He's living in LA during tax season just because. It's just because he wants to move and live there for a while. That's interesting too because it's 2 tax homes that aren't beneficial to anybody. Like, why not have your
Oh,
tax
yeah.
home in Mississippi, right?
Yeah, go somewhere where there's no income tax,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, make your permanent residence there and then be a nomad. That's that's a trend these days. So, pods, firm structure. This was good. Till next week, right?
Professionals.
Nice.
What if we just started spelling
Amazing.
more words with P's?
I could do that. I don't know what you mean by that. What does that even mean? We do already spell our words with P's. We have plenty of words with
I feel like
P's.
there's a lot of words that have a P in it that doesn't make any sense, like pseudonym doesn't have a P in it.
Pseudonym doesn't, yeah, but
Like,
that's another good one. There's a lot of
why?
pseudonyms.
We
Yeah.
should look up words that have a silent P in front because I feel like that'll open up a
Ah,
whole new world.
psychology. Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Psychology, psychiatrist. It's always a PS though, right? It's typically
Psyching
the ones that
yourself
are
out.
silent. Yeah. Fat. Peace out.
See you later.